Welcome to Conversations with Achievers. I'm your host, Robert White. I'm a mentor to owners, executives, and their teams, and CEO of Extraordinary People, LLC. I work with people that want to create extraordinary business performance with less stress, more joy, and more personal fulfillment. So sit back, relax, and prepare to learn from your peers as we explore what it takes in terms of attitudes, habits, and behaviors that achieve extraordinary results. Results for yourself, for your family, and your community. Hello, Robert White here, and welcome to Conversations with Achievers. As we often do have, we have a great achiever who's joining us today to talk a bit about his life, his business, and the world according to Sam Moses. Sam is the founder and CEO of Sockrates, and which kind of a wordplay on Socrates that I just love. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You know, I'm like everybody. I go to conferences. I have clients. I also, do events and use gifts. I spent 23 years in Asia in my working life, where it's a gift-giving culture. So I'm kind of tuned to gifts. People like them, and people complain about them, but they really like them. I'm the same. And when I first found out about you, I was absolutely fascinated. I want to give you an opportunity at the end of the show to talk about your business and how people can connect with you. But how about a quick introduction to custom socks? I love them.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely a niche that not everybody's heard of. But when you think about it and when I explain it, it's like, oh, that makes sense. So we are in the custom sock business, and that's specifically custom socks, and specifically making socks for companies, whether it's a tech company or a banking company or a consumer goods company, or really any company, even a dental office or a doctor's office. We make custom socks, and what we do is we take their brand, something that they're very proud of, and we use their brand to design a high-quality, fashionable sock with a custom label that's branded to them. So it's a full retail-looking proper product, that's something you would buy in a store. And this is a gift that, once produced, they would be able to give out to their customers, kind of like as a thank you for doing business. It's something that has high utility, where kind of like people are using them. It's at the top of the sock drawer, obviously, and it has a long life. So it's a product that you say thank you. It's a thank you product. It is relatively inexpensive, but it has very high perceived value. And the most important thing is that it actually is being used by the end user that you've given it to. And also important, of course, is that it can incorporate your brand in a very classy way. So you're not just taking your name, your company name, and slapping it all over the place. You're creating a retail-looking product that somebody would have bought in a store using your brand. So if your brand is, say, American Express, okay, so we use the colors of American Express and we brand the sock. It is as if you walked into a store and bought the sock, but this is something that American Express would give out for free. So it's a tool that companies are using to express their thank you to their customers, or to use it as a way to incite a customer to do more business with them.
Sam, years ago, a client gifted me with a ticket to one of these all-day motivational leadership training kinds of events with a variety of speakers. And I went to hear the late Colin Powell, the 4- or 5-star general plus Secretary of State, an incredible guy. And he was speaking on leadership. I felt privileged to be there, and it was a great speech. But the big surprise was hearing that marketing guy, Seth Roden. The guy, he's got bigger ears than Barack Obama. That's what I remember about him. But Seth was brilliant. That's the kind of thing where I think most of us don't remember much. But I remember that he took the word remarkable and split it into two words, remark able, about the importance of standing out, of building a personal brand or a corporate brand. And he said it in a way that I got it, that I'd never really gotten it before. And of course, he branded himself by doing that. And maybe his bald head and his ears are part of his brand. But I think we're all looking for how to be remarkable.
Yeah.
To get people talking about us. That's terrific. Look, you've created this incredible, a little bit sexy business, I think. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to being founding and being a CEO.
Sure. So I came out of business school, 22 years old. I went to business school up in Canada, in a well-known business school where I was in the room very like-minded people. Not necessarily all entrepreneurs, but definitely people who are interested in business and love to talk about business. So that helped me a lot. Growing up, I would always talk about business, and some of my friends were maybe like, "You're talking too much business," and they were talking sports or other things. And I was kind of very heavy on business. So when I went to business school and I was in the room with like-minded people, definitely helped kind of like propel me in the direction that I wanted to go. I then started working for a management consulting firm, and that was important because it got me exposure to lots of different types of businesses and being able to analyze them kind of like from a bird's eye view. And being able to look at businesses and say, okay, strategically, this is something that they can do better. This is something that they're strong in, and this is some opportunity for them. I did that for a few years, and then I moved into market research where I was doing studies for a big company back then. You've probably heard the name BlackBerry, and they got really, really big. Some of my friends tease me a little bit. They're like, well, clearly you didn't give them great advice because they got a hit there in 2009. I go, I don't know if that's all my fault, but nobody can stop the Apple train from hitting, So I did some consulting for them, market research. We did studies all over the United States, all over Canada, really surveying the population and finding out what they liked about BlackBerry and what they didn't like about it, presenting those results to senior management. So that was a really good exposure for me. And then I thought to myself, I've been on the end of this side of the world where I give it, I'm looking at other people's business, and I think it's time for me to start to kind of go into my own business. I was in Manhattan, in New York City, and I was walking by this amazing store. It was a small little retail store called Andrew's Ties, and it was a chain from Italy. And I was very into fashion, and I was very into suits, and I was very into ties back then. Not so much now. My wife teases me. When we were first dating, she always said, "Oh, I think you sleep in suits." And now I live in Florida, and she's like, "Sam, when was the last time you wore a suit?" So I've definitely changed my my habits a little bit. But I was very into suits and ties, and this was a small little accessory store from Milan, from Italy, and I got the rights to bring that. And I opened this store, and we sold menswear. And it became a very popular store in Toronto, and we were selling high quality menswear. I noticed that the store only really catered to small demographics of people, very high net worth executives or high income executives. And I said to myself, there's hundreds of thousands of people walking by. Why am I only getting A, male, and B, high income? Why can't this store be accessible to everybody? At that time, I had just recently got married. My wife was in advertising, and we kind of branded the name Socrates as kind of like, what does your socks say about you, And we went to China at the time, and we found a manufacturer. We started bringing in our own socks, and they started to sell extremely well. And when I say extremely well, I had a tree in the front of my store, little store, 800 square foot store that held 700 pairs of socks. And me and the staff, we'd probably have to replace that tree during Christmas season 5-6 times a day. I mean, it was crazy. There were lineups for these socks, colorful design, and we had designers designing them, high quality. They weren't cheap, to be honest, but there was just such a demand. That was in like 2013, 2014, and we were doing very well. We were just doing very well. We were doing so well that companies started coming to us and saying, who makes these socks? And we told them we did. And they said, hey, Sam, I'm Dell. I'm going to a trade show in January, a couple of months. Can you make me my own line of socks? And that's how we got into the business. It was actually customers coming to us and expressing a need, and us just reacting to the need. And we didn't have any formal systems in place like we do now. And we would just design it. You know, the manager of my store, luckily, was also an art degree. She had an art degree. So she learned Adobe Illustrator, and she kind of just figured out how to design it. And from there, she's now my vice president of design in the company. And she's now, we don't have retail anymore, so she's with me on this side of the business. And she's very successful in the business. And she came up with all the systems of how to design and how to create design boards and how to make a final board, and all of these processes that we have in place now is because of her. But back to the story is that these companies were coming to us, and we started doing the orders, and then in 2018, we had a flood where we had to rebuild the store, and we just, we did rebuild the store in a year, but we went all online with the socks. Companies started coming to us from all over the world, UK, Israel, Australia, Germany, France, I think I got one deal in Italy, even though we produce in Italy now, and Canada and the US. And we just started producing for everybody in the world, all over the world. We now have a team of around 15 employees who are full-time on this business. We pivoted out of retail. So it's just a process. Like, you go through different things in life, and they will bring you to your next kind of like step. I like to think of it, it's almost like a boat, and your boat has stops along the way, right? And, I would have never guessed when I was management consulting out of business school that I would be running a retail store, and then I would be running a custom socks business. Like that's not the normal route, but it's not even a route, but like it just kind of happened. Everything kind of, stepped on top of each other, and then we put it all together. So that's us, that's me. And then, that's kind of how we grew, and we're continuing to grow the business, and we're continuing to service clients all over the world.
There's a part of your story that I really love, which is the person that was managing your retail store and doing a little bit of design work ends up as vice president of your company.
No, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I like to say, the luckiest day in my life was when I met my wife, right? But the second luckiest day was that the manager of my store also had an art degree, because if she didn't have that art degree, we wouldn't have been able to do this so easily. She had the skills in-house, and now she's, again, vice president. She has a whole team of designers, so no, it was definitely very, I don't know, lucky, or, it was much good fate there,
Well, it also is a gift that many of us as entrepreneurs have, which is to see possibility in people,
Yeah.
and then give them the space, give them the support. I'm sure there were some rough moments along the way, but obviously based upon her still being with you and in a really responsible role.
Definitely lots of, the story I told sounds really good, but there's definitely lots of bumps along the way, and those bumps are important, and there's always bumps, right? So you just have to kind of persevere and learn from them, and kind of keep going, and you'll keep growing, right?
Is there one where you felt that you really learned the most, where you shifted a perspective or a way of approaching a life and those bumps? Did you have one that really got your attention?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it was, there was a period of time, it was a November season where or October, where we were going through a huge rush. And, I kind of realized I couldn't do this on my own anymore, and I had to start hiring people to help me. And I'm so used to in my career kind of doing everything on my own. So if it was like packing the boxes, I'm packing the boxes. If it's shipping and all this stuff, I'm doing it. If it's project management, I'm doing it. I'm kind of taking on everything. And there was a point in the business, and where the person who was with me, this designer, where we were kind of like butting heads a lot, and we were bickering a lot because it was just too much for the two of us. And we kind of realized, hey, look, this business is doing well, but it's bigger than us now, and we have to bring in people to help support us, but not only that, but support them. Socrates can actually support them. Like Socrates can give them something, you know? And we have this beautiful platform that they can come onto, and they can help us grow and we can help them grow. So that was definitely a defining moment in my career. It happened a few years ago where I said, I can't do this on my own anymore. I'm going to need the help. I'm going to have to delegate. I was never great at that. And she was never, and the designer was never great at that, but we had to do that because it's one thing when you're doing 30 orders a month, let's say. When you start to get to 150, 200, 300 orders a month, you can't really rely on memory. You need to have really good systems in place. And you can't rely on yourself being at a computer to do everything. Like you're going to just need to have a team that's really, really dedicated to what you're doing to be able to produce that kind of quantity. And above all that, you're going to have some really good technology in place and systems in place. And above all that, after all of that, as you know, you're going to have some luck because it's still hard. Even if you have everything perfect, you know, it's still really hard to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So, you know, there's a lot of factors, as you said.
Wow. You know, that's, I think, wise counsel for all of us. Something that occurred to me this morning, I try to read and spend some quiet time most mornings. And, but I was thinking about our talk today. And one of the things that I remembered was the late president, our George H.W. Bush, was incapacitated in his later years and in a wheelchair. And I've spent some time in a wheelchair because I've got a terrible knee. But when you sit in a wheelchair, your pants ride up, so your socks show.
Yeah.
And his wife, it's on YouTube somewhere, Barbara Bush, gave a speech once where she showed slides in all kinds of different settings showing off his wild socks.
Yeah.
And this was a time when we were still in suits. We were still being really conservative. You know, we all had the black socks and the brown socks, and that was maybe a little bit of a pattern. That was it. But she called attention to the fact that his maturing years, from her standpoint, showed that he was maturing in other ways.
Yeah.
You know, that he was now wearing these wild socks, and he was in his 80s at the time.
Yeah, we heard a lot about that, and we definitely picked up business because of that, because it became like a thing, like these colorful socks. He was all over the news, and the news reporting them out, and it became like kind of like a talking point. And that's really the power of the sock, is that it's a way to it's a conversation starter. Oh, cool, cute socks, you know. And when you give it to somebody, they can say, "Oh, I wore them; they were really comfortable." It's just a conversation starter. Business is all about people to people, right? And at the end of the day, how you connect with people. And if this little tool can help you connect with people, even 10%, then it's a powerful tool, you know.
Well, that pivot that you talked about allowing other people in and delegating, you know, maybe the culture would not have changed, and you'd still be successful if you started letting other people who can do some things better than you and a better use of your time. I know you have a family to go home to, and without systems, without those procedures, without technology today, you don't have that free time. You're
No.
totally engaged in what you're doing. And it's a trap for entrepreneurs that we stay stuck doing everything ourselves.
Right. And sometimes what that leads to is you have a really good business and you've lost the excitement of the business because you're so run down with these everyday tasks. Mm-hmm. And you have this amazing business and it's doing great, but you don't love it because you view your business, it's almost like a negative association. Like, oh, but I'm the one who has to stay up at 2 a.m. and email people back. And I'm the one who has to do this. And I'm the one, and it kind of runs you down a little bit. Versus when you delegate properly, you're still doing a lot of work. There's no way around that. I mean, as you know, you have to work hard, but you're kind of working hard in a very systemized way where everybody is working and doing their part, and then you actually end up loving the business a lot more. You know, so it's not just It's not just it becomes a big love when you start to work with other people and you see that they're passionate about it. I get a lot of excitement when I see how passionate other people are who have only started with us within the year. You don't have to be in a business from the beginning to love the business that you're in. People can get that love right away. And I've seen that in my business. There are people who have started with me in 3 months that love it, and people who have been with me for, you know, Becky's been with me 9 years and she loves it. So it's really nice to see, you know.
Exactly. You know, I made a commitment some years ago with my friend, the late John Denver, that we would live a life of no regrets. But before, and I've pretty much kept that promise to him and to myself. But before I made that promise, I had one regret that I just thought of, and that is while living in Tokyo, I learned of a consultant who was earning, this is 30 years ago, earning over $1 million a year net.
Wow.
And so I wanted to meet him. And a regret that I have is I didn't persist. He wasn't easy to connect with. He was a star and all that stuff. And I was this goofy American. And but that's an excuse. If I would have persisted, I would have met him. But his story was brilliant. He worked for one of the big electronics companies. And in Japan, a retail store owner almost always cannot afford those huge deposits that have to be made to rent a shop. So they get money from one of the big people, Hitachi or Matsushita or Sony. And in return for that money, they feature their products in the store. Ooh. I mean, 70, 80% of their products are from that manufacturer that put up the rent money. And so what one of those manufacturers found out, it happened to be Matsushita, was that they hired this guy, and what he would do is he would meet with and those were always mom and pop shops. He would meet with the husband and wife in their store after hours. And, you know, over time, maybe they've been there 10 years, 15 years, sales have drifted down slightly or a lot. And what he would do is have them describe the night before they opened the shop in detail and surface their passion, their excitement for this new company and their first sale. And what was the first product you sold? And they always remembered all that kind of stuff.
That first sale, right?
I thought for the consultant, what a brilliant approach to reconnect us to our passion.
Right. You think that he's coming with fancy Excel sheets and all these graphs and all this stuff. All he's coming with is that human emotion of, you know, what did you feel like the day before you opened, you know?
And he caused these incredible turnarounds, and the client paid him a lot of money for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That simple conversation, but actually quite cleverly structured. And anyway, I've always regretted not meeting him, but here's a shout out to him wherever he is, or if he's still alive, not really sure. But what a brilliant, brilliant approach. And a reminder to all of us that ultimately you got to enjoy this work or it'll damage you.
Yeah, that's it. And time's so valuable. So if you're spending time on your business or in anything that you're doing, you know, your marriage or your personal life or whatever it is, you have to enjoy it. You definitely have to enjoy it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sam, look, you've been fantastic. Thank you for sharing so openly. And if people would like, first of all, I want to encourage people to go on your website, because there's an actually unbelievable variety of ideas there.
People are surprised. They're like, how much can you put on your custom sock website? I'm like, oh, you'll see. There's a lot there, you know?
I mean, from kind of relatively conservative all the way to really wild and everywhere in between. And some of it pretty blatant commercial, and some of it pretty subtle. I thought, and of course, it's what the client wants, I assume.
Yeah, and the good thing is they don't have to know what they want. Our design team will come up with the 6 to 8 designs for you to look at, complimentary. So we kind of jumpstart the conversation with them just sending them their logos. So it's easy to get started. You go online, you hit get started. we'll send you 6 to 8 designs, and you can kind of see your brand come alive. And that first design board that we send over, really the client is like, oh wow, this is incredible. I've never seen our brand being displayed on such a unique product, and see the brand come alive in a retail ready format like that.
You have a unique name, and I'm sure people can Google and find Socrates or Socrates, depending on your point of view. But I know the actual website, if they want to go direct, is a little bit longer. Can you just tell people how to get in touch with you?
Sure. Anybody can reach out to us. It's Socrates, SOCKRATES, custom.com, SocratesCustom.com. And of course, they can email me at any time. It's just sam@SocratesCustom.com. And we'd love to hear from you. And it was obviously very nice to speak to you, and great to do this interview.
Sam, I want to wish you well. I want to thank you sincerely for contributing to our audience today. And hopefully, I wanted to mention this, one more thing. And that is, you take orders, most of them are huge, but you do take orders for as low as 100 socks.
100 pairs, yeah.
100 pairs. And if people have a wedding or a family reunion or a high school reunion or something like that, they can be customers, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we do weddings, bar mitzvahs. We've even done some birthday parties. Yeah, it depends on how big your birthday party is. But yeah, I mean, we've done, even dental offices and doctors' offices. Anybody who really wants to feed back to their customer that thank you, and to see their brand come alive in the sock. That's who the customer is.
It's a unique idea. I love supporting it. Sam, thanks again, and all the best to you and yours.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us for Conversations with Achievers. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for this weekly show, the details are at therobertwhite.com and click on podcasts. I'm looking for businessmen and women with a story to tell, stories that might benefit other owners and executives. If you got some value from this program, I'd really appreciate you sharing about it on social media, and just mentioned www.therobertwhite.com. Of course, subscribing means you won't miss a show, and rating the podcast positively will leave Robert smiling. I'm building a movement here for leaders who want to succeed in business, succeed with their families, have fun, and contribute toward making the world a better place. It's special to me that you chose to listen. I look forward to connecting again next week. Remember, reach out to me anytime with any questions or concerns at therobertwhite.com. Bye for now.